Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add an agenda item to new business.
Okay, Commissioner Collett wants to add an agenda item to new business.
Can you name what the agenda item is?
I'm getting it to you, yes. I'd like to add action to approve the Board of Commissioners to drop all lawsuits against any other component of the county government.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we got a motion to drop all lawsuits against any other component of county government. And what we need to do is vote to add it as an agenda item. So is there a second that that motion is be added?
I second that.
And a second by Mr. Davis. Is there any discussion?
Well, I'm discussing why I want to add it.
This would be why you want to add it. It's not discussion of the actual motion itself.
Okay. Back on April 27th, this is an action that the chairman wanted to bring and have put on the voting agenda that afternoon.
What was that on that?
February 27th. February 27th.
No, you can discuss it first about why he wants to add it, but you're not going to discuss the substance, right?
So anyway, back on February 27th, the chairman had brought this to the voting station, added it to the agenda. We had to take it off because it was put on incorrectly. I have expected to see it on the last several meetings. It was not on there. So I'm just wanting to add it back on so that we can discuss it.
Okay, we have a motion to add dropping all lawsuits against any other county components with a second. And we've had discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
And now it becomes agenda item number 3 to discuss.
Okay. Let me give a little bit of background from Commissioner Collett's proposal to put something on the schedule or on the agenda from a call Friday to commit to our county clerk, Ms. Meredith, and that call didn't come to me, and so Ms. Meredith asked me about it, and given Commissioner Collett the benefit of the doubt, I had it added, and then when I talked with you yesterday morning, I realized that what you really wanted to put on there was the airport and lawsuits. And my decision on that was that that would just be further controversial and further not being constructive. So that was new business item 3 for a couple of days, but as of yesterday morning, I wasn't comfortable with going through that very divisive issue, and I pulled it off. So, but the enabling legislation does say that, and the working agenda is supposed to be a full board effort. I'm just responsible for getting it out there. The times when you can add if it's an emergency or it's an urgent necessity. So I'm assuming by
Lonnie gave us a memo on that yesterday, Dave, about necessity being determined by your refusal to add this to the work agenda. And the board has a legal leeway to determine the necessity in a case such as this.
correct. That's what I'm saying. If you want to, vote for this to be an urgent necessity, then that's the only way it can be added. So I guess we've already passed that.
You have. It's been added to the agenda at this point.
So it's a topic, as you suggested, Mr. Collett, that I've been very much behind, and so let's discuss it.
Before we discuss, I'd like to amend it.
Okay.
I'd like to read, action to approve the Board of Commissioners drop all lawsuits against any other component of the county government and to discuss the history of the airport. Have a discussion of the history of that.
I'll second that motion.
Here we have an amendment to add the history of the airport. And we have a second discussion. Since we in Paulding County have an airport authority that, per the IGA of 2014, the airport authority and its chief executive officer are the experts of what is going on at the airport, from the operation of it to other issues surrounding the airport. And I don't think it's appropriate to amend this motion without having representation from that authority.
I disagree. We're talking about lawsuits and the history of a piece of property that's ours. They are party in some of those lawsuits, and I believe it would be inappropriate to put them at this point with representation.
The original motion came from the chairman, not the Collett County Airport Authority.
The original motion, though, was just to drop the lawsuits. It wasn't to discuss history that can't be properly represented in this board meeting without representation from both co-sponsors. So I think it's really not in the spirit of utilizing the expertise that we have in the county to have this discussion and include the history when we don't have the airport authority representation here. So we can certainly make that happen in the future, but I think it should be tabled until we can have representation from that.
I would respectfully disagree. I think anytime we have an open discussion and be transparent about an issue, I think the public, the citizens have a right to hear.
Well, as I already stated, the reason I took it off is because it is such a controversial issue. I think that we should be positive and be promoters of the airport as a general aviation airport. And, you know, I didn't have confidence that we could have that conversation and also have accurate information about both sides being represented.
Dave, what's controversial is when you have this appear on an evening agenda without it being discussed with anybody beforehand. So when we walk in for a 7 o'clock meeting and sit down and look over the agenda, it's nothing what we've had to look at before, and it's just sitting there in front of us. Those of you who are at this meeting recall, we actually stopped the process here and went into executive session to talk about it was a litigation, it fell under litigation, and how that was added inappropriately. So that's the controversial piece of this. This is the proper way to add something to agenda. It's the proper way to handle a discussion about an issue.
If we had an issue, Commissioner Davis, that involved, as many do, involved the water system, our water and sewer system, and involved DOT, and we just had half of that representation, then we're not getting the full picture of what the issue is regarding to. We're just getting a tainted, partial picture, and I think it's really...
Quite frankly, Dave, this board is represented by both sides of the issue on that airport. And it's being recorded, and I'm sure that anybody who gives any information that's not true will be called out on it. You've got your side. I mean, you and I have had this discussion. You know we're on different sides of this airport issue with what's going on there and what's going on in the past with the airport and previous administrations. And you are certainly part of this board and able to participate in the discussion that Vernon's proposing.
So who will be the ones to call out when we don't have representation?
All the wonderful people we represent.
May I make a comment? Who was the county attorney at that time? Back when the airport was first put together?
When it was a general aviation?
Before, even when it was being built.
I was.
We got the county attorney here. I believe if I get off step or say something I shouldn't, you will correct me, will you not?
Well, you guys are close, and I want to make sure you know which part you're in.
Okay.
You actually are on a motion to amend.
That's correct.
The item, so you need to do a vote on the motion to amend.
Here we have a motion to amend to, you want to read it, something about the history?
I think you had, well, you had written it, it was the old item, which was action to approve the Board of Commissioners to drop all lawsuits against other county entities and a discussion of the history of the airport.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, before we take a vote, I just want to clearly state that without having both sides represented, that it's an incomplete argument and it's an incomplete discussion. And I would like to see our county focus on the airport as a positive asset for general aviation. And I think there's agreement on the board here for that. That's what's been expressed in debates. But I don't think it's fair to start into history and say, well, Ms. Skipper's responsible for getting us, if we get off track, or if you all get off track, getting us on track without having, the airport authority has an attorney also that would round out and fill this discussion so that then I would support it. But I don't think this is the way to do it. Again, this is something brand new as of this hour. Nobody came to the chairman and said, hey, we would like to talk about this. Personally, I think dropping all.
Actually, that's not true, Dave. Vernon, hold on, no, Vernon sent you an email and asked you to add that. And you removed it. This isn't brand new this hour. You ripped it out of the agenda last week.
You're incorrect. You're incorrect. It was airport and lawsuits was what I saw as the added agenda item. I called Commissioner Collett yesterday morning. I initiated the call to him. What do you want to talk about? What's the content of this? And when he told me, so we don't need that as far as being a wholesome, positive discussion about this asset that we're very fortunate to have. The public and the audience are not interested in us arguing and fighting about this, and I don't want to.
Then let's have a discussion about it.
Okay, you know, this is new to me. I will call the vote and you all can discuss it. But there's nobody here to represent the other side, and I don't know what the history is going to be described at. And personally, I'm not up here as an expert in every detail. The attorney for the airport authority and the CEO of the airport authority would be much more qualified to do that. So I don't think I should even make any comments about it. But we'll call for the vote.
Actually, I'm going to say something before you call for the vote during this discussion. You should be an expert because you were on the Airport Authority Board.
That's right.
And to say that the other side's not here to represent themselves or represent the public, they haven't represented the public the entire time. So I have went to them to amend the intergovernmental agreement. I have went to airport authority members and discussed what we could do out there, and that our board was supportive and behind general aviation, supported and behind building T-hangars that the county and the airport authority would own, supportive and behind anything with general aviation. I have asked to go in executive session with them on called meetings, advertised called meetings. I've asked for them to come to executive session with us to discuss it. And the fact of the matter is, since the announcement, October 3rd of 2013, that answer has been no. So for us to think that they're going to show up here today or here in 2 weeks for discussion, I don't really see that happening today. And you were on the airport authority for many years. You were on there when you were running in 2012 for post 1 commissioner. While you were running, you were signing contracts. You were on there. You have the history of it too. I learned several weeks ago in this meeting that I couldn't count on nothing that you did unless I had it on video. That's what you told me. You said, do you have it on video? So therefore, I know there's folks on both sides of the issue, but the bottom line is this. We have put every single thing out in the public eye. Every single thing with this issue. Some of you may not want to hear it. We've done exactly what we said we would do. And we will continue to do that. But I have learned that having a cup of coffee with you, you said it doesn't count unless it's recorded. We're here. We're going to discuss it.
Well, Mr. Pownell, what you just said, a lot of that's inaccurate, and you speak about general aviation. There's a company called Resicom that's a helicopter training unit out of Alabama that wanted to locate here, and you did not even return the phone call to that company to support it, to encourage them to come here. And there are a lot of other examples.
I called the vote.
Yeah, let's call the vote, Dave, and we'll discuss that issue.
Okay, well, I'll run the meeting,
It's
okay?
incorrect.
I'll call the vote when I choose to call the vote.
Let's keep discussing it then, because we can discuss it during this time if you'd like to.
So that y'all are aware, what I'm trying to get you to do is get through the amendment part, and then we're actually gonna read the agenda item and discuss it. That's how it should work, from a parliamentarian sense.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we have to have a vote on the amendment.
A vote on the amendment, and then you're gonna read the amended item and then discuss it.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Please read the motion and the amendment.
Okay, I have the amended item is action to approve the Board of Commissioners to drop all lawsuits against any county entity and to discuss history of the airport. That's what it finally ended up with.
Correct.
Okay, now we vote on that motion, right?
You vote on the motion, well, actually, in this case, we just read the motion, then you have discussion, so I just read it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
Well, you don't have to have a motion in a second, because
We're
this is a
moving to
work
discussion.
session. It's been added to the agenda appropriately.
Okay?
Okay. And I'll be glad to open discussion since I brought the motion or the action to the floor. I've had plenty of conversations with everybody involved back in 2006, 2007, and moving all the way up to the time I got elected. And Lonnie, you correct me if I did say something incorrectly, because I know you were there. The county has voted twice, and I don't know those years, I know Commissioner Crowe knows them, to not financially support the building of an airport. Now, you talk to a lot of people, and I'm real careful, I said financially. I've talked to a lot of people who've had that vote, and never one time said, yeah, I voted not to use taxpayer dollars for the airport. I voted against the airport. I wasn't in the county at the time, but when the airport started coming around, it was talking of being a general aviation airport. I actually supported that. I actually supported Jerry Sharon in wanting to build that airport. Might have been a wrong thing to do now, but I did support it back then. And I'm joking because I still support general aviation, and I don't think anybody has been a bigger proponent than general aviation than I have been. I think it'd be a very helpful tool to the county. But what happened was when they decided to build it, they had to get funding. And my understanding that Troutman Sanders was very, very instrumental in procuring those funds for Paulding County to build that airport. Without what they did, it probably wouldn't be here today. And it's a beautiful airport. It's an airport that won an award for its original idea, which was to be an executive airport. The road beside it was to be a place where we were to put mountain chalets, and executives would come here and they would be able to fly their plane into that airport and go over to their little mountain chalet and have a car and go to Atlanta or wherever they wanted to in Atlanta and enjoy a little stay here. Still a great idea, and I think that's what we should pursue. It even won an award, and Scott, I can't remember what award it was, but I know you know. What was the name
Won
of
an
that?
award through the Economic Development Agency at the federal level for basically a flying community with.
Flying Community. What was that? What was the name of the award? The Hope?
Award in Economic Development Plans.
Yeah.
Okay. Something we should still pursue, in my opinion, with that airport. I think it would be awesome to have that and attract those type of people. They would have Very expensive planes, which would be housed there, so we get to ad valorem on them also. It's the original plan, and I think we should stick to the original plan. However, when Blake Swafford went to build the airport, and started knocking down trees and laying out the runway, he didn't even put the runway on county property at all. It was on 2 other people's property. It was on property that belonged to the Weaver family. We wound up in court with the Weaver family because we went out there and started just knocking trees down on their property, making a runway, didn't even own the land. So we had to settle that in court. The Weaver family eventually said, you know, we'd have probably sold it to you if you'd come and ask us. But they didn't want to. But they did. The other land belonged to the city of Atlanta. So we go to the city of Atlanta and say, hey, you know what? We're building this airport and we need some land from you. Several meetings. From what I understand, it was 3 or 4 meetings down in Atlanta, 3 or 4 meetings out here in Paulding County. Atlanta said, you know what? We want to be good neighbors. We do not want to be the bad guy. Tell you what, after some negotiation, they said, we'll sell you the land. You need 163 acres, right? Okay, we'll sell you 163 acres. We only ask one thing. Never compete with us. Never bring commercial flights to Paulding County. We want to be a good neighbor. Everybody agreed. It's on film. You can watch it. The promise was made. Now, the city of Atlanta made a mistake when they did the land grant. They didn't attach that part of the what's the word I'm looking for?
Agreement and a
It's
deed.
not a deed restriction.
A deed restriction. They should have made it a deed restriction. There's some talk of whether or not it would have held up, but they should have put the deed restriction on there, and they forgot to put it on there. You think someone with all the attorneys they have and how powered as they are, they wouldn't make a mistake like that. But that's humans, and humans make mistakes. So, since they forgot, some of the same people who made the promise to the city of Atlanta, they also made the promise to the people, the citizens of Paulding County, let us build this airport. We promise it will be general aviation. We will never take it commercial. If we do, we'll be the first to run. They weren't the first to run. They broke their promise. They should not have broken that promise. So now we're being sued by the city of Atlanta. They've got a lot of money and a lot of attorneys. How long is that going to take? How far is it going to go? We don't need to be in a suit with the city of Atlanta. It should be a general aviation airport. I've had men come up to me who are elected officials and some appointed by elected officials, men who call themselves Christians, who have told me I need to forget about the promise. Don't worry about the promise. This could be a financial boom for Paulding County. Well, I disagree. I don't think it will be a financial boom. We know from the Chamber's own study that they did, it was only 55 full and part-time jobs that would come due to commercialization. One good general aviation company could bring 55 jobs. General aviation does not want to be where there's a commercial airport because then they have all the red tape they have to go through. They have to deal with TSA every day when they go to work. It needs to be a general aviation airport. I support a general aviation airport. I can't believe that people would say, the heck with Atlanta. They would screw us. We got it if they had a chance to. I usually respond, no sir, they would not. They had that opportunity and chose to be a good neighbor. And this is how we're treating them. It should be a general aviation airport. It should not be commercial. The man that we're in contract with is a man named Brett Smith, a New York businessman. And I use that word loosely. We've seen things he's done. We've seen how he has been on video. Should not be in business with me. Should not. We need to send him packing. Period. I am committed to making this thing general aviation. I do not think that it should be commercial. The reason I think we shouldn't be in business with Brett Smith is because he said he wanted to do improvements at our airport. The Paulding County Airport Authority took out a bond to make the story short. I'm going to say it's a $3 million bond. We know it's more than that, but okay, they paid some back, so $3 million bond. He said he'd make payments. He signed a contract with the Paulding County Airport Authority. He's not making those payments. He owes you, the taxpayer, each of you sitting out there who is a resident of Paulding County, who pays taxes, today, $1.1 million. There's an additional $1.6 million to be paid. And I've had people come to me and say, I think we should drop the lawsuit. I don't think it's right for one entity, government entity, to sue another government entity. Well, we wanted to sue Brett Smith because he's breaking his contract with Paulding County Airport Authority. But through the law and through the court, we found out, guess what? He's first in line, but second in line is the Paulding County Airport Authority. Can't sue him without suing them. We asked them over and over, go after the money. The taxpayers deserve it. They finally sent out one little letter. Didn't have much bite to it. They've done nothing since. So we took action. We took action to protect the taxpayers. You, the citizens of Paulding County. We said this is enough. We want Mr. Smith to pay what he owes us. So yeah, there is one entity suing another, but when you read the internet, they leave that out. They make it sound like it's just being sued to stop general aviation. It has nothing to do with general aviation. It has nothing to do with commercial. It has to do with making a businessman from New York abide by the contract that he signed. And he ought to be ashamed of himself for not abiding by that contract. And anybody that thinks that we should pay his bill, you don't need to vote for me. Do not. But if you think that we should continue to go after this guy, get the money owed the taxpayers, I can say this: I took an oath to protect the taxpayers, and I will honor that oath. Thank you.
I'd like to say something also. While Vernon was talking, I've read the contract on the 163 acres. Is in there several times that we would guarantee not to allow pastures in and out to compete with Atlanta. We applied for the 139 illegally. They should have sued us then, but they didn't. I was always amazed. I read the thing several times. I thought, wonder why we've got to reach a contract. Why they haven't came after us. And then when the 163 acre was deeded over to the airport authority, they had no choice but come after us. We had no choice except to defend ourselves. So the city of Atlanta has been more than a gentleman about this. And I'm sorry that they have to sue us, but this airport, whatever it may be, has been absolutely a model of how not to run what we go.
If I could clarify one thing, and it's something you said, Commissioner Collett, you indicated that we were in contact with Brett Smith, and we are not.
You're correct.
The county is not.
Thank
It's
you.
The contract between Propeller Industries is with the airport authority, not the county.
Thank you.
She's correct. The authority should correct me. Can you also elaborate on Brett Smith suing us over that and being denied the appeal?
We may need Mr. Connerly to do that,
Okay.
who is sitting in the audience. He was our attorney on that subject. But I did want to clarify, we're not in a contract with Propeller Industries.
Thank you, and I didn't know that. I just misspoke.
Like in all things, I have a 5-minute presentation and I have a 25-minute presentation. So I'm going to start with a 5-minute presentation and then y'all tell me if you want a 25-minute presentation. Some of this requires, I think, a little more context than maybe what we've given so far. So let me just back up a little bit and then I'll come to the question at issue, which is the fact that Brad Smith's entity, and I'm just going to refer to it as Silver Comment, has sued Paulding County. I want to go back to the adoption of Resolution 1501 for a minute, because that's when this board decided to officially withdraw the county support for the proposed commercialization of the airport. And if you recall, what happened within a few days of that is that the airport authority sent to the FAA a letter that said, we don't care what the county says about this. We want the FAA to continue to process that Part 139 application. And I would submit to this board that that decision, that one decision, is the reason that I'm up here today. It's the reason that this county has incurred all the legal fees and expenses that it has incurred for the last 2.5 years or so dealing with this issue.
The decision by the Palm County Airport.
By the airport authority to send a letter to the FAA saying we do not want that 139 application withdrawn.
Okay.
Because that set in motion everything that's happened since then. That is the reason, for example, that the city of Atlanta filed the informal complaint with the FAA on the deed restriction. And that's the reason we were hired to begin with. And the airport authority never sent that letter. The city of Atlanta would have never filed its informal complaint, and my firm would have never been retained, presumably, to respond to it because it never would have existed to begin with. What we got from the FAA in response was, well, we're going to consider the 139 application as remaining pending until there's some sort of litigation solution to this thing. And you may recall that the second task my firm was asked to do was to respond to the FAA's request for an opinion letter as to the effect of Resolution 1501 in light of the fact that the airport authority wanted the application to move forward. So again, that was item number 2 that was set in motion by the airport authority's request that this application remain pending. And so we ultimately, because the FAA would not allow for the withdrawal of the 139 application or would treat it as remaining pending until there was some sort of litigation resolution of this, we filed a declaratory judgment action, a simple declaratory judgment action with the airport authority on the other side, simply asking the court to answer this one question, which is who, as between the county and the airport authority, has the right to move forward with the proposed commercialization of the airport. In other words, can one party do it without the other, or does it require the consent of both parties? And we did that because the FAA said, we're not going to treat that application as having been withdrawn. We're going to treat it as remaining pending until we get some sort of judicial determination on this issue. And that's when we move forward with that lawsuit. Now, in response to that, Silver Comet intervened in the lawsuit. They actually filed another lawsuit in federal court. They removed the state court case to federal court, and they greatly expanded the scope of the litigation that we were involved in. But as part of that, Silver Comet asserted a claim against the county for interfering with its contract with the airport authority. So now we're defending a claim that's been brought by Silver Comet. In response to that, we went ahead and filed a claim against Silver Comet on the bond issue, saying you're responsible for the repayment of these bonds. You're not paying these bonds. We'd like for you to either be ordered to pay those bonds, or we want damages for the fact that you haven't paid those bond payments that you promised to make. So the question then is, why can't we just quit? Why can't we just let all of this go? Well, we can't let it go because, in part, we don't control it. We also can't let it go because it leaves the county exposed to claims for damages. So let me just walk through about 4 reasons why we don't have the option of just quitting. First of all, as I mentioned, the FAA is treating the Part 139 application as pending, and it has communicated to us in writing that it will not decide the pending application until the litigation is resolved. And I would submit to you that if we withdraw from the lawsuit, then that opens the door for the FAA to make a decision on the 139 application that they have told us remains pending. So that's reason number one, we can't just quit. Reason number two is, yes, we were successful in the trial court in getting Silver Comet's claims against the county dismissed. But those claims, that dismissal is up on appeal right now. And so quitting means that we leave ourselves potentially defenseless in the claim that Silver Comet is asserting against us should they prevail on appeal. And I just remind everybody, their claim at least was for millions of dollars. So we can't just leave the county exposed to a claim for millions of dollars.
May I interrupt for a minute? So
Sure.
If we drop that lawsuit, then the judges are going to see that as we're admitting guilt.
Well, what would it depends on what happens on the appeal. But if their claim were to be reinstated on appeal, and then it was sent back to the trial court for further consideration, what it would mean is we would no longer be defending against that claim. So essentially, we would, by default, they would get the judgment that they're seeking. So we can't just stop.
And probably be back in court arguing about how much we'd actually owe.
That's right.
Thank you.
The third issue is, as y'all have pointed out, our claim against Silver Comet for the bond payments remains pending. So quitting means that we are giving up on our efforts to recover the money we've already paid on behalf of the bond payments we've already made, that our position is we weren't obligated to make, and future payments that the board may be prepared to make. So it essentially just means eating $3 million or whatever the number is. And then the fourth thing is, again, the city of Atlanta has not only filed its informal complaint with the FAA, they have also filed a lawsuit raising the same issues. So quitting in that context means that the city of Atlanta prevails. So I'd like to summarize by saying this. There are three things, in my opinion, that are directly responsible for all of the litigation fees and expenses and costs this county has incurred in this matter. The first is the airport authority's refusal to allow the Part 139 application to be withdrawn. The second is Silver Comet's intervention in what was a very simple lawsuit involving us and the airport authority, that all we were asking the judge to do was just say, yes, either one party can move forward without the other, or it requires the consent of both parties. But their decision to intervene in that lawsuit exponentially expanded the scope of the litigation and required the expenditure of the vast majority of our legal fees and expenses. And then the third thing, and y'all touched on this, but I want to emphasize that we spent a lot of time and money in response to the airport authorities going and getting a quitclaim deed from the outgoing chairman of the board days before he was to leave office, in direct contravention to instructions that the FAA had given us. And we spent months and months and months, once the FAA became aware of that, trying to come up with a joint corrective action plan, again, at their direction, in order to address this transfer of the 163 acres. So I don't know the exact percentage, but I would submit that probably 95% of the legal fees and expenses this county has incurred, at least since our involvement in September 2015, have been a direct result of one of those three things: either the refusal to allow the 139 application to be withdrawn, Silver Comet's intervention in the lawsuit, or the decision to go behind closed doors and to get a quitclaim deed executed for that 163 acres. That's probably more than 5 minutes, but that is at least my 5-minute presentation. But I can go into more detail about the chronology and all that, how we got here if you need me to.